Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, this is going to be an amazing episode because me and my friend Kevin, we want to get you back into the game, get you competing again, whether it's in life or in business. Now, Kevin is an amazing individual. We've been friends for a while now, a prolific author. I actually have two of his books on my nightstand right now. We're going to be talking about that. He's also a coach. So, guys, if I ever have questions about mindset, about getting in the game, he's the guy I go to. Kevin, brother, welcome to the show.
Great to be on, Richard. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for taking the time. I know we played phone tag because I had some stuff going on, but thank you for taking out your time, especially, you're hanging out in Spain, so it's a rough life.
I've only been out here 3 days, so I was back in the south coast of England. So, but winters over there can be a bit miserable. So, thought I'd come out for a few weeks of sunshine to boost up the energy.
I love it. So, my first question I have is, what is your definition of resiliency?
I think my definition of resiliency is the desire to get back up when you get knocked down. There's nothing in life worth achieving is easy. So in anything that you do, you're gonna fail probably more times than you succeed. And the most resilient people I've seen out there, and you can read every autobiography from any successful person, it's how they got through the darkest days as what really made them, what really turned them around. And that's not an external thing. You can't look outside for that. You've got to look internally. And that desire to whatever it is you're going after, that you really want it. It's not an external motivation. It's an internal motivation.
Okay, so now obviously you're not from New Jersey. You're not from the United States. You're from the UK, and I was supposed to have one of your countrymen on today, the drummer from Def Leppard, but he had an incident, so he can't come on until next week. And I actually love anybody from over the other side of the pond. I love you guys. You guys are so humble and likable and caring. So tell us a little bit about what part of the UK are you from, and tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and how you became the man that you are today.
So I'm from the south coast of England, originally from Dover, which is in the southeast, right in the bottom right-hand corner. And I've gradually moved myself west along to Southampton, which is right in the middle, sort of south central of the UK. And I suppose my journey in business started when I was a teenager. My father gave up a very successful job because he wanted to have control of his own destiny. He wanted to make something on his own. And my mum had started a printing business, so my dad decided to buy a sign business off a man in a pub, and sort of give up all the trappings of a good job to be his own boss. And that was in the mid 80s or early 80s. And I suppose his journey probably inspired me to do what I do now, because he was a very intelligent man. He knew a lot about finance. Didn't know anything about signs, but he bought a business that should have worked without him. But unfortunately, no one told him that once you've bought a business, the purpose of it is to build it and eventually sell it, and not, for it to become your job and just be doing that for the rest of your life. And unfortunately, after 15 years, his business hit the recession in the mid 90s, and really it hadn't done a great deal in the last 5-10 years. It got to a certain level, plateaued, and he just came in every single day, 9 till 5, probably later than that, work weekends. But he'd never sort of got the whole idea that a business should be bigger than yourself. He built it to provide his lifestyle, his income level. And then when something happened, there was not enough structure in it to survive that sort of downturn in the economy. So it's a little bit like a boat. You start off with a little dinghy, and it's fine for sailing around the harbour. But if you want to go out into the ocean, you need to upgrade your boat. And if you want to go transatlantic, you need a serious boat. The same with a business. You can have a small one in your local town. You can have a big one in the region, or you can go international. Do whatever you want to do with it. The choice really is down to the individual. So, and that goes back to your initial question about resilience. So that's really what drove me. I went into finance, was a finance director of some fast growth companies. So I was quite lucky because, from my dad's business where it was just him, doing his business for himself and his family, I was working with some serious business people who were building, not because they needed any more money, not because they needed to provide for the family, but because they just loved the game of business. They were making multi-millions, and they did it because that's what they enjoyed doing. And the mindset when you're playing at that level is completely different to the mindset when you're playing down at the small level, because if you make a mistake when it's small, then it has a major impact on you personally. When you're playing in the big league, if you make a mistake, there's financial consequences, but you've generally still got enough assets and wealth outside of the business to actually personally not to affect you at all. And
okay,
then
so one thing I want to really hit on is something you talk about a lot, especially in your books that I love, by the way. Somebody asked Warren Buffett, how come you don't play sports? He said, because business is my game.
Yeah.
So that's how he plays. That's it. So, but a lot of us, especially, I'm sure, especially in England, football is so big. People, will spend so many hours a year watching football or, watching it, playing it. But then when they're poor because they didn't play the game of business, or if they do have a business, they don't take it as seriously as they did for football. Have you seen that a lot, where a lot of people would be like, yeah, my team, but you're broke. You know what I mean? You're watching millionaires and you're a hundredaire,
It's an interesting one, the sport business analogy, and that was what really drove me to write my sort of third book, the Great Game, where I look at the similarities between business, and I chose golf because I'm a bit sort of addicted to playing golf, and I couldn't play during COVID, so I decided to write a book on it. And in there, I identify 4 types of players, and I think you can, it's not just golf. You can apply that to, soccer in the UK, American football, baseball, whatever game that you choose to follow or choose to play. That these 4 types of players are the same within sport and within business. And the first one's the beginner, that everybody has to start somewhere and you learn it. Now, a lot of sports you learn when you're a kid, and at that point it is fun. You're playing, you don't really care about it. There's no real rules. You're just there because you enjoy doing it, and then you get good at it. So you become a bit of a learner, an intermediate, where you actually become a little bit addicted to the learning process. So you can see what you learn, your skills are improving, so that motivates you to go on and on and on. And then at the extreme, you end up with a master. So these are the professionals, the people that make their sort of living out of doing what they do. They're so good at it, they're in the top 1%. The problem with the transfer from the sort of the improver to the master is it can take a lot of time. There's a talk of 10,000 hours, of practice before you can master something. Now, for most people, 10,000 hours is about 5 years of dedicated hard work to actually learn and master a sport. So what happens with a lot of people is they get to a level of comfort. They get into their, I'm doing okay. I'm sort of, maybe it's football and they're just playing with their mates. Sort of, we have a thing called sort of pub football. So all the pubs have a football team. I'm not too sure what in America sort of the version is, but there'll be softball and baseball, sort of club sort of games, and you're okay. You play with the people around you, but you become really sort of a level where you become a lifestyler, that the sport fits in around your lifestyle. You're not doing it to make money. You're not doing it to be the best in the world. You've just become sort of a person who just does it because they enjoyed the part of it, whatever it gives you, and that's where you stay. And I find that within business as well, that you get people that are, you know, very keen to learn about business when they start. If they're lucky, they meet somebody like myself, you know, a business coach to actually help them, or they go on, you know, courses to actually learn about all the different aspects of business. But many get to a point where the business is a level where it provides their lifestyle, and that's where they stop. You know, they never go to that next level to actually learn to master it and push on and see where they can actually take it. And that's really what I look for in clients, is those that are either at the improver stage, you know, they just want to get those basic skills, or looking to actually master the game of business and take it to, you know, to pro level. In effect, would be a sort of the sports coaching terminology.
Yeah, and I'm a miniature golf guy, but I have played Tiger Woods on the Xbox game. But for me, I found, especially in sport or in business, a lot of guys or girls, when they first start out playing golf, they want to buy the best clubs, the best shoes. They want to look the best. But when it came in time to put the effort in, they don't want to put the effort in, because you can get a guy like, for me, you can get a guy like John Daly. He could just come in smoking cigarettes, drinking a beer, grab a regular set of golf clubs, and just beat your ass on the golf club course, even though you have the best clubs, you're in the best shape, you know, because he actually put the hours in, he put the work in of, you know.
He did his 10,000 hours when he was a kid. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
Tiger Woods is reported to have had a golf club and a ball in his hand at the age of sort of, 12 months. They were learning those skills that you need to actually master it at a time when your brain is developing all those sort of connections that allow you to do things repetitively. Unfortunately, most people in business and in sport, are picking up those, trying to learn those habits at the age of 40. And unfortunately, we don't learn as quickly when we're older, and our brains are already hardwired with so many other aspects that we're trying to overcome all of those bad habits of how we hold a club, how we swing a club, how we kick a football. Whereas a youngster, a 4-year-old, hasn't got any of that to reprogram. They're just a blank canvas. So it's a bit like painting a picture. If you were to paint a picture on a blank canvas, it would look pretty much like the picture you wanted to create. When you start a new skill when you're 40, it's like painting over an existing canvas. So it probably takes about 10 coats before you actually get rid of the picture that was there before. And that's when we're talking about earlier about people transitioning from one industry, one business, even from the forces into a new business, a new game. Some of those traits that served you well where you were are not going to serve you well in that new game, and you have to unlearn all those bad things to actually help you move forwards in the next game.
And also, I also find in sport and in business, a lot of guys or girls, they have their group, and they might be the best player in their group, and then they get fat, dumb, and happy, and they're happy where they're at. But I find you don't get better unless you're playing against better competition. Correct. And for me, I believe that if you're and I forget who said it, but they said it, if you're the smartest person in the room, then you need a better room.
Yeah.
And I think in business or sport, I think that's great advice, because if, we already know what we know, I want to know what I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But again, we're fighting there a natural conditioning, a genetic thing that we're all born with is we don't like to fail. Because if you go back hundreds of thousands of years, if you failed as a hunter-gatherer, you died. If you failed attacking the saber-toothed tiger, you were dead. So we have this sort of fight or flight mechanism sort of built within us that we actually are programmed not to like losing. Now, when you're learning something, you've got to be prepared to fail. And say, children, when they learn to walk, fall over more times than they walk, but that desire to walk is strong enough to keep them going. When you're comfortable in business, in life, and you've got a lot around you, your fear of losing what you've got will actually hold you back from failing going forwards. And that's what happened to my father. After sort of 5 years, he'd got a comfortable lifestyle, and he didn't want to risk any of that to push further forward. So he stayed as it was. And actually, that was his biggest mistake, because 10 years later, the whole thing was whipped from underneath him.
Well, if I talk to anybody, especially if they're in business today, and I ask them, to start using social media or to, start doing something different, and they say, well, this is the way we've always done it, you're going out of business.
Yeah.
Eventually, if you don't adapt, you're going to be going out of business, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then the world seems to be changing at a far quicker rate than it's ever done. If you look how long, Facebook's been around, Instagram, 10, 15 years, it probably took, TV 30, 40 years to get that level. So even now, we're looking at marketing strategies on Facebook that 6 months, 12 months ago just, used to work then, but they don't work now. So you have to constantly reinvent yourself and learn. And if you are failing, then look to change, look to become better. So.
Okay, so now, like I said, I think you're like my 550 guests or something like that. Usually when somebody gets into business, a lot of it's because of somebody they knew or their father. But sometimes a lot of people don't want to get into business because of their father or somebody that they knew had a bad experience. So what made you want to go into the business more instead of going the other way and decide, you know what, I'm good just being an employee. I don't want to have to worry about all this stuff.
I suppose I got into it when the father was still working, and I was, as I said, I was lucky that I was hanging around people who were in business that were a lot more successful than my father's. So I saw my father's mistakes as, I wish I could go back, and that was why I wrote my first book, which was a bit of a homage to him, and it was the book I wish he'd read the day that he started his business, because I would hope that he wouldn't have made the mistakes. Although knowing my father, he was a pig-headed man, and he probably wouldn't have read the book, and he probably wouldn't have listened to whoever gave him advice anyway, because unfortunately there are some people that just do that. But I think you've got to see business from both sides. You need to see the successes and you need to see the failures, because if all you're seeing is the success, then I think a lot of people then think it's easy, and business is one of the hardest games that you'll ever play. It's far harder than any sport. I think that's why Warren Buffett loves doing what he does. And to be honest, Warren Buffett is an investor. He doesn't run businesses. Other people run the businesses. He's. Oh.
I got you.
Oh, I've got you. I've lost you.
Nope, I still got you.
Okay, the screen's gone.
Nope, I'm still here.
Okay. Oh, there you are. Sorry.
But something about Warren Buffett also. I mean, he doesn't drive the flashy cars. He doesn't wear flashy clothes. You hardly ever see him involved in any drama. So he knows what his game is, and he's perfected his game. Yeah. And I think a lot of us, when you become a business owner and you start to see a little success, that's when you start seeing the Benzes, the Lamborghinis. You start seeing this shiny object syndrome, and we kind of forget what got us there. So do you see that a lot in business also?
I suppose I do see it. I've had clients that have got there, and there's one guy I coached a few years ago, and he'd had 6 Ferraris, and he just said, Ferraris don't motivate me anymore. You know, they used to, but they don't. And the problem with when you sort of people have that, I'll be happy when I have the house, when I have the Ferrari, when I get the promotion, when I start the job. You know, happiness is never in the future. Happiness is in the moment. You can only be happy right here, right now. And the key to that is understanding that, you know, that it comes back to the sort of a bit of sort of like part of it is mindfulness, but it's sort of more like being in the zone. So when you're working towards a goal, yeah, and everything in your brain is working together in harmony, all the skills that you've learned, you know, and things are working out, then you can be happy in that particular moment in time. And a lot of it is accepting what you've actually got already, you know, and you know, looking back and being grateful for where you are and the people around you, because your happiness isn't just round the corner. And that's where a lot of people get stuck, and they think, oh, when I become successful, then I'll be happy. No, you know, wealth, you know, and money are a magnifier. Okay, so if you're happy in yourself and you have lots of money, then it will magnify how you feel. If you're miserable and lonely and you have money, then you'll just be a miserable, lonely, rich person. You know, you think that people will pretend to like you because they want a piece of your money, but as soon as that money goes, or they'll just sort of use you for their own purposes. And you see that a lot for successful people that have got money, got rich very quickly, that they then sometimes struggle to actually deal with the wealth that they actually have.
All right. So first, I want to dig a little bit deeper into that. But first, I want to thank our sponsors, guys. As you know, I was in the military for 23 years. I was with GNC for almost 30 years, and I always liked pre-workouts, but I always never found one that tasted great. So we came out with our own high-velocity coffee called Vertical Momentum Coffee. Twice the amount of caffeine, twice the energy, no crash. Tastes amazing, but 100% of the proceeds go to help veterans struggling with homelessness and PTSD. So if you love coffee with a mission, let me know down below, and I'll get you that information. Also, guys, as you know, so many companies are getting data breached every single day across the world. Thank God we haven't had it, because my friend Daniel Curry at Indy's IT department keeps our phones and our computers bug free. He takes care of our cybersecurity. So guys, if you have computers and you're worried about cybersecurity, right down below, go to indiesitdepartment.com. Ask for Daniel. He'll take care of you. So Kevin, talk to me about the impetus for writing your first book, because I got all three, but the first one really hit home for me. It was a really emotional book for me. So tell me about writing all your books.
I think everyone says that everyone's got a book in them, and the first one, my father had passed away, my mother had just been diagnosed with cancer, and I felt that I wanted to write a book based on a little bit my journey and my learning, what I'd learned over the past, I think it was about 10 years at that stage, around this whole mindset of what it takes to be successful within a business. But also sort of to relay that to an actual story, which was my father's journey of giving up a good job, buying a business, growing the business, the ups and downs. So that's why I called it the roller coaster. It's called the Big Dipper: How to Survive the Roller Coaster Ride of Business Ownership. Because a lot of people that I'd spoke to sort of just said, I'm just on this roller coaster. 1 minute I'm up, next minute I'm down. When does it end? When do you actually get off the roller coaster? And that's what I said about earlier. The end of the roller coaster is when you sell your business. So if you never sell your business, you are always on the roller coaster. Now, people like Warren Buffett know that financially they don't do this because they have to. They don't have to pay the bills. You could stop tomorrow, but He chooses to do it because, you know, he doesn't know how to play golf, I assume, because I think, why would you want to sit in an office with a computer screen when you could be out in the sunshine playing golf? But, you know, that's what he likes to do. So that sort of roller coaster ride was the mental ups and downs that you come across. And I'd learned a lot of the sort of the science behind it, how the brain works, and, you know, certain aspects over the years, and I wanted to put it into real life situations, which was, you know, so my father's story. So the first bit of the book is the story itself. Then the second bit is the science behind it. So I relate it back to Newton's law of gravity, is one of the chapters, and then there's for those people that like to speed read, there's just, well, if you just do these three things, then you'll be pretty much on the way to success with this particular area. So,
and you know, like for the last 2 years, I've taken a really deep dive into mindset, into NLP. I've been taking a deep dive, and a lot of people always talk about, you know, Think and Grow Rich. Well, yep. I don't know what happened there, but I wanted to know, well, who did Napoleon Hill learn from? So I went back and, you know, started studying, you know, the Carnegies, started learning what they did. And, you know, the brain hasn't really changed much in the last 120 years, 123 years. But a lot of us don't really learn or take the time to learn how the brain actually works. And like my mentor, Mr. Ed Milet, and Tony Robbins talk about all the time, is how if you want to become successful, you set your reticular activating system for success, and you will find success, because you're going to find whatever you're looking for, whether that's success or failure. So talk a little bit about, you know, the mindset and how the mind actually works for success.
I think the brain is an extremely complicated organ, and, you know, we still don't know fully exactly what certain parts of it do. But to simplify it, I found the easiest way to look at it is over the millennia, it's developed in three key stages. You know, at the base, there's the reptilian brain. Okay, so we share that with all animals. You know, it's our basic need to survive. So fight, flight, reproduction, food, and sort of controls our body, our respiratory systems, that sort of thing. So basically there it is, hardwired into us. We're born with it, and it's there to keep the species going. Then we decided, you know, we didn't decide, but evolution decided that human beings work better in packs. Okay, so we are a social animal. Okay, so we then developed a limbic system that enabled us to engage with others. So that's our emotional brain. So that's the way that you can actually read how somebody feels by noticing what's going on. So our own emotions, but also the emotions of others. And the easiest way to sort of look at that is the difference between a chimp and an alligator. You know, you'd say an alligator has no real emotions, where a chimp will have, you know, a lot of emotions going on, very similar to human beings. And then the third part of the brain is the neocortex. So that's the big gray stuff. So this is the human brain. So this is what makes us unique amongst all the other animals. It's our ability to learn from the past, and more importantly, my belief is to project into the future. So we're the only animal that can really sort of see into the future and imagine things. Okay, so, you know, I think we dream more, but our imagination, and another lovely sort of saying I use is IVVM: idealize, visualize, verbalize, materialize. And it does go back to your reticular activating system for the brain, but I might come back to that in a minute. So that neocortex is extremely powerful because it allows us to learn from past mistakes, and it allows us to project into the future and go, well, if I did that and that, and I can rationalize and plan going forwards. The limbic system is our emotions. How do I feel? So that's our energy source. That's our drive. If I feel that I want to do this, then I move towards it. If I'm fearful of it, then I'll drive back. And then the reptilian brain is the stuff that actually just gets us and makes it happen. Okay, so the more we do it, the more we learn, the more we condition our reptilian brain, the easier things become. So that's really where our base habits come from. So it's those three things that as a driver for all people. Now, I said to you before, the comfort zone is probably our most dangerous place to be, because if I'm comfortable, the reptilian brain has nothing to be scared of, so therefore it just sits dormant. It's okay. It's like a crocodile alligator that sits in the pond all day, does nothing. The limbic system, the emotions, I feel okay. I've got a nice close bunch of people around me, the people that make me happy, I'm doing all right. And the neocortex, is not really being driven to think, well, what else I could have? Well, what if I did go over there and try something new? What if I picked up a new skill? So the neocortex starts to sort of almost, I would say, dumb down a little bit to suit the environment in which we are. Because if I'm in that environment, I suddenly wake up one day and go, do you know what, I want more? Then I've got to wake up the limbic system. I've got to wake up the reptilian brain to actually go and do it. And my little formula for success is, who do I need to be? What do I need to do? What do I want to have? Okay, so the have is the neocortex brain working forwards. Yeah. The do is the reptilian brain of actually what do I physically need to do? And then the be is who do I need to be? What's my emotional side of things? So those three things have to work together. So who do I need to be? What do I need to do? What do I want to have? And I've always thought the most important is the have. If people don't have a big enough have, then they'll never do enough, or they'll never be enough. And I've just finished. Have you read Daniel Goggins' book? Can't Hurt Me.
I love it.
He's insane. I mean, he's sort of at the extremes of what a human being can actually do. But the whole book is, look, he's nothing extraordinary, or didn't come from anywhere extraordinary, but just a certain number of conditions led him to actually see how far he could actually push his body, and his ultra marathons, and just an amazing story. And you see these outliers, and these are outliers. Warren Buffett is an outlier. David Goggins is an outlier. The majority of us fall in that middle camp, but we can learn from these people and say, do you know what? I could push myself a little bit further, go for a slightly bigger goal, but understand that the attainment of the goal is not what it's about. It's about the journey towards the goal. And I like to think about, if you're trying to climb Mount Everest, the moment you get to the top of Mount Everest, how do you feel? How would you feel?
On top of the world.
On top of the world, yeah. 10 minutes later, how do you feel?
Now you're going downhill.
When you get to the bottom, what do? Suddenly there's this anticlimax, because what you thought was your purpose and your drive, suddenly you've achieved it. So you've got to fill that void with something new. And that's what a lot of people then turn to alcohol, drugs, or do stupid things, because the brain has been developed on all those things that it needs. Yeah. And now you've taken it away for it, it'll seek alternative substitutes for it. So that's why Warren Buffett keeps doing what he does, because the goal of wealth accumulation never ends. He's in an infinite game he's playing, so it never ends. So he can continue to play the game. If he got to the end, a bit like Monopoly, and said, right, there's nobody else playing, so I've won everything, Warren Buffett would be a broken man. He just wouldn't know what to do with himself. And that's the dilemma here. Is we're playing an infinite game of business, and Simon Sinek talks about that. Playing the infinite game, but with a finite definition for ourselves. So if we play the game of business, we want a finite definition of selling it for 1 million, 2 million, 10 million, whatever that might be. And then once we've done that, then we can choose, right, do we go and play another game, or do we get back into the game of business and do it again? And you see a lot of serial entrepreneurs they haven't made their money on their first business, they've made it on their second, third, or fourth business. Each one was just a stepping stone to where they've actually finally found themselves. Whereas most
But
people in business,
like we
business,
talk about the game of business, but it should be fun. Like I watched an interview with Gary Vaynerchuk, my friend Gary, last night. He said, my company is worth billions, but I get so excited by being able to pick up a 50-cent doll and sell it on eBay for $68. He says, because it's fun. The game of business should be fun. And I think we become more successful if we started playing again, like we did when we were coming up, and make it a fun thing instead of making, I got to go to work, I got to go make the money. Make a game out of it, like Warren Buffett does.
And I mean, the challenge with that is you can only get to that level of enjoyment when money doesn't matter. If you have to go to work, if Warren Buffett had to go to work to earn enough money to keep his family fed, then Warren Buffett wouldn't be making the decisions he makes now. If Gary was having to do that to feed his family, if you look at a pro footballer, if they had to win that match, otherwise their family would be locked up for not paying their bills, they will play that game of football completely differently to the way they play it. And this is the challenge with while the game of business should be a game, it's like a game with a gun to your head. That if you fail, have you been watching Squid Game? It was on Netflix.
Yep.
Yeah, where they're playing games and the losers die, they get shot.
Yep.
Okay, that's what business is like, I would say, for the first 5 years of a business. It's like playing Squid Game. If you fail, if you mess up, you're dead, or you feel that you're going to die. The game of business becomes fun when it gets to a certain size and you've created enough wealth outside of the business that if that business had failed tomorrow, it wouldn't significantly impact your life. And that's the problem that most business people have, and why I do what I do is to take people through that gap. The first few years are okay because if it failed, well, you've just risked it a couple of years. But once it gets to a certain size, what you've built up is not enough for you to stop, but too much for you to walk away. So the stakes become, it's like going to the roulette table with the last £10,000 of your money, betting it on red or black. If you've got to do that every day, you think about the stress levels that come in to that person, then that is no longer a game anymore. It's just, it's worry, it's stress. And that's where I think a good 50-60% of business owners is they're constantly playing that game with that sort of roulette gun against their head. And that's not a great place to be.
Okay, so then, tell us what you do. I call you up. I'm like, bro, I'm struggling. My business is doing okay. We're doing great. We're not doing anything great. I'm not happy. I'm not feeling it. Come and talk to me. So you come down. You come down to the States. You fly into the States. We go sit and have a cup of coffee. What's the first thing you talk to me about?
The first thing I talk to you about is, what are your goals? Where do you want to be in 5-10 years? What does financial freedom look like to you? Now, majority of people haven't reached it. You may well have reached it, in which case the conversation is slightly different at that stage. But let's say that you haven't reached that financial freedom. The first thing that we would do is work out, okay, what does that need to be? How much do you need to have coming in from assets that you've invested in to provide you the lifestyle that you want? Not that you need, the lifestyle that you want. And the scary fact for a lot of people is they've never done that calculation. And it's a fairly simple one. If you invest in reasonably safe, secure assets, you get on average about a 5% return on investment. So if you want a $50,000 income, you need invested $1 million in assets, be that stocks and shares, in your pensions, in property, in shares in businesses that you don't have to work in, whatever it is, those should be providing you an income of 5%. Now, for most people, and I would say it's not just business owners, most people in jobs have never even thought about that. They've never even sat down and go, do you know what? I've got to work until I'm 80 before I've even going to come close, because most people are living their life to the income that they provide. They're not investing. They're not using compound interest to build up a wealth for them at some point in the future. And unless you've got that clarity around the have, then I'd say having the business is almost irrelevant, because how do you know how big your business needs to be until you know what that figure is, and how you're going to achieve that? Can businesses of this be sold for that amount of money? It's a bit like saying I want to drive from East Coast of America to the West Coast of America, and then I ask you, well, what vehicle have you got? And you say, oh, I've got a little scooter that I have to push myself. Well, you're never going to achieve that, are you? So we need to upgrade the scooter. We need to work out, do we need one business, two businesses? How do we then manipulate this business to be the vehicle that you want it to be? Or do you ditch that vehicle, and then find another vehicle that can actually get you to where you want to be? So once we know we've got the clarity of what we're trying to build,
that makes a lot of sense. But now also, and I've had several multimillionaires, billionaires, people like yourself, entrepreneurs have a very high rate of suicide. Yeah. And even the most successful ones, because they're not playing again. They're not enjoying their life. They have the house, they got the boat, they got the car, they've been married 4 times, lost in a divorce 4 times. Now they go to the big house and they eat dinner by themselves at the kitchen table. Yeah. And they're not having fun. They're not enjoying life anymore. So what happens if you sit down with somebody like that? They have the money, but they just don't have any joy in their life.
So that's really, it comes in that the 2 key motivators for most people are move away from pain and move towards pleasure. So the reptilian brain is the move away from pain, and the limbic system is move towards pleasure. So the pleasure is, what is the goal? I want the house, I want the car, I want the boat. Once you've got that, you're not in pain, so financially you're secure. You've bought all the things that you thought would make you happy, and then you've realized actually they don't make you happy, but the pursuit of buying them and actually getting them, does make you happy for a brief moment. Then you have to realize that you've got to then engage that neocortex, that human brain, that thinking brain, and it's no longer then about you. See, the real motivator for most people is not about what they can do for themselves, it's what they do for other people. And this is where the likes of Bill Gates have got it right to a certain extent, like him or hate him. The fact that he doesn't wake up in the morning to earn more money to pay for the family. He's financially secure. Elon Musk is the same. These guys are so rich, money is irrelevant to them personally. What gets them up is, for Gates, it's about solving, is it malaria? I think it's malaria he's trying to solve, isn't it, in Africa? Elon Musk is about putting men and women onto Mars. They've got a higher level purpose that is beyond them. So it's not about them anymore, it's about other people. Okay, so Warren Buffett doesn't make money now for himself. He makes money for those people that invest with him. He wants to make other people multimillionaires like himself. As a business owner, we grow businesses not to provide ourselves with more money, but to help more customers. We want our customers to be happier. We want to build teams of people and employ people to make them happy, to help them with their journey towards their goals. And I think sometimes people get lost, and certainly I don't think the stock exchange and this whole thing of short-term profitability in corporate world is doing that any good, because we think that we're making money for the stock exchange, but at the expense of customer service, at the expense of doing good for our people. The whole shareholder, stakeholder value. And that's where Simon Sinek's written his book about the search for purpose. Start with why. that's where the real motivation comes from once you've achieved that financial success yourself. The danger, again, is while you want that, it'd be lovely to have that now. If you're still in fear of putting food on your family's table and looking after yourself, then how are you going to be motivated to help other people? And a few people have managed to do that. Mother Teresa, sacrificed her life. She gave up all her, she didn't want for anything. She just dedicated her life to, people in Africa. And, monks do that. And a lot of people have that drive that they don't care about themselves. But even then, they're still, it's not the fact that they're going to go hungry or not, not sleep somewhere that night. Those basic needs are taken care of. Therefore, they can work on a higher level self-actualization, as Maslow talks about in his hierarchy of needs. So,
well, see, that's why even like veterans, first responders, they're all about taking care of others, keeping people safe. But then when they hit the civilian sector, they're starting at the bottom, and now a lot of them don't know what to do because they don't teach you how to be an entrepreneur in the military. But also, when we get out of the military, we realize that we have something that 80% of the civilian sector does not have, which is a strong work ethic. Like we'll work till a job is complete. We don't go home until the job is done. And then when you get into the civilian sector, they say they work for 8 hours, but they put about 2 hours in. The rest of the time is BS. So we don't make very good very good employees, but we make great entrepreneurs. But we really don't know what an entrepreneur is. So we got to start somewhere, right?
Exactly. I think, sometimes coming up with the idea is difficult because, I think the entrepreneurialism is, for me, it's a true entrepreneur is somebody that has multiple businesses. Okay. Just your first business, you're not an entrepreneur, because most people start their first business not because they want to be an entrepreneur. It's because they have to, they're made redundant. They're fed up with working for where they are. Ex-forces people come into business because nobody would employ them. There's a reason. So they never set out to be the next, I used to say Donald Trump, but no one wants to be Donald Trump anymore. But the next Elon Musk or Bill Gates, even Bill Gates, got to where he was through a bit of luck. He never set out to be a multi-millionaire, and that progressed as he went through his journey. And that's why I will say life is a journey, it's not a destination. Now, you can't always set, I want to be over here. You want to set smaller goals and then achieve those, and then use the power that what drove you to that first goal then drives you to the next goal, and then the next goal and the next goal. If you're a mountaineer, no one would sort of say the first mountain you climb is Everest. I mean, you'd be crazy to do that. You've got to start with smaller peaks, condition yourself. Goggins I loved his terminology of callous the mind. You've got to get your mind callous, because you will fail more times than you succeed. And you've got to embrace failure. You've got to accept it. You've got to learn from it. And that resilience from your first question. If you don't have resilience, then don't be in business. And I do think that the younger generation here that have been brought up, mollycoddled by parents, allowed to live at home, given everything they could possibly want, we are not callousing our kids' minds. When I was, I hate to use it, but when I was a kid, it was almost like, right, you leave school, you leave home. That's it. You're on your own. You go out. We'll pay. I was lucky enough, middle class, that my parents were willing to invest in some further education for me. But a lot of my friends, no, you're out on your own. Whereas now, there's kids living at home in their 30s. It's like crazy. We're not putting them into a situation where they can fail, and then they learn how to be resilient and how to recover. I think we're a dangerous place.
Especially like I love sports. Even in baseball, if you miss the ball 60% of the time, you're going to the Hall of Fame. If you can hit it 4 times out of 10, even in, or basketball, if you're Stephen Curry, you hit a 3-pointer every 4 out of 10 times, you're going to the Hall of Fame. So that means they failed 6 out of 10 times. And even like Michael Jordan says, you know what? I've won 6 championships. Some people call me the greatest of all time, but I missed 900 shots.
Yeah.
And they don't quit. They just keep coming. They keep going. And I think we need to sometimes embrace failure, but fail forward, right?
Exactly. You got to, you can't fail at the same thing over and over again. Yeah, that's the definition of insanity. What you've got to do is go, right, every time you embrace failure, right, I failed. Okay, what did I learn? What do I do differently? And that's really, what evolution is. The whole human species and every animal, plant on this earth has come through the evolutionary process. And often it's pressure and times of change that give the best results. When things stay the same, status quo, everything is okay. There's no pressure to actually change. When times are tough, which I think we're in now, is this post-COVID sort of change that's going on in the world. This is where often big step forwards are made, and you've got to be prepared to embrace that and meet that opportunity and go for it. But from a position of learning, of understanding, and that's where I think people like myself, coaches in any walk of life, but certainly in business coaches, we're not used enough. Because people say, oh yeah, I've been running my business for 20 years. What can you teach me? Well, must be a lot, because if it was me, it wouldn't have taken me 20 years to be where you are now. One guy saw me the other day and I said, he was turning over about $500,000. And I said, how long have you been in business? He said, 17 years. So great. So it's taken you 17 years to be as successful as you are now. So do you want to wait another 17 years to be where you want to be? We had no answer. Okay, it should take you 10,000 hours, which is 5 years of learning to master something. Otherwise you're just repeating the same bad habits over and over again. Go back to the golfing analogy. That's where most golfers are. They've got the same swing they've had for the past 10 years and they're still going round in 25 handicap. Well, if you're happy with that, then fine, but that's never been my case. I've always wanted to be, much, much better. And therefore I have a coach, I practice, I'm prepared to fail and come back and learn more and be the best version of me I can be.
All right, so Kevin, let me ask you.
I wish I was a bit younger, because the body doesn't quite work the same way as it used to.
So today is March 20th. So if there's a 45-year-old male, name is Craig, gets out of the military, wants to start a business, what top 3 pieces of advice would you give him if he was going to start a business today, March 20th, 2023?
I would say, obviously, come from the forces. I would choose a business that there's a potential for it, and one where you can see yourself not having to be the fee earner. Okay, your job, certainly from any walk of life, but the reason the army works and any service works, it works because of the team. The team works. It's not an individual pursuit, and therefore business is not an individual pursuit. So you've got to be able to visualize your business in 5-10 years time and go, right, what is my role in this? I can't be at the front. I can't be the man on the ground doing the work, because if I'm there, then who's organizing it? So I've got to be, the general, the sergeant major. I've got to be somebody that's orchestrating the troops. And if you can visualize what your business is going to look like in 10 years time, and you've got to be a certain selfishness, is what do you want out of it, but also in return of what you want out of it, what are you going to give back? So what are you going to give back to your team? What are you going to give back to your customers? And that vision is what you then go and build. Okay, don't just start it because you need a job, because you need an income. You know, I would say go and get a job, even if it's stacking shelves in a supermarket for a few years. Do that before you start a job, you know, a business that you don't have a vision of what it's going to look like in 5 years' time. Not necessarily 20 years' time. You don't even need a vision of becoming a multi-millionaire. I mean, a lot of people don't go into business for that, but at least have some vision of how it's going to work without you in the future.
I love it. So how do we find you? How do we support your mission? How can we pick up your amazing books?
So the best place for the books, the Big Dipper is on audio as well. So it's on Audible if you like listening. So it's the Big Dipper, and then just my name, Kevin Stansfield, in Amazon. And then the second book is The Great Game, how the lessons from the great game of golf can help you win the equally great game of business. So if you just put my name, Kevin Stansfield, The Big Dipper, The Great Game, and you'll see the books there. It'd be great for more people to read that and leave me some good reviews. And then you can either contact me, Kevin Stansfield at actioncoach.com, or just find me on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn/Kevin Stansfield, and you'll see me there. It'd be great, any of your listeners that want to reach out and just have a chat, a little pointer, you know, give me some feedback on the books. That would be fantastic. So.
I love it. So guys, make sure you reach out to him, especially on LinkedIn. He's got a great LinkedIn page. He's always dropping valuable knowledge on LinkedIn. Pick up his books. I have two of them on my nightstand right now. I'm actually going through the game for a third time, my third iteration. I love it that much. So guys, get back in the game. Start competing again. You know, we used to do that as kids. We used to compete. We used to have fun. Start getting back into the game. Start competing again. Start enjoying life again, because we're only getting one shot at this. We're not getting a second chance. There's no do-overs. You know, there's no mulligans. So start enjoying life and get back into the game. Kevin, brother, thank you so much for hopping on today.
Been a pleasure, Richard. Thanks very much. And yeah, I wish you well with it.
I love it. All right, guys, I'm going to head off. Enjoy the rest of your day. And remember, vertical momentum. The only way to go is but up. I love you guys. And make sure that you subscribe to our Thursday Thunder, where you're going to get episodes like this delivered right to your email for free every week. Kevin, have an amazing week, brother.
Thanks a lot, Richard. Take care. Bye for now.